All right. Any questions from last time? Okay, all right. So let's go ahead. Yeah. So we will continue our discussion on the Laplace transforms today. Let's see what is that we have. So last time we ended our time by considering the so-called shifting theorems. Let's just quickly recall the statement. So suppose that I have a function defined on the set of reals. Let's consider the following function. Yeah. So what is the function g? G is defined. So given C a positive real number. So the real number C is positive real number C is fixed beforehand. I am constructing this function g as follows. Yeah. So g is 0 if t is strictly less than c, and to the right of the c, g is defined as translation of f, which is a function of the variable t at a distance c in the positive t direction. Right. Okay. So in terms of the unit step function or the Heaviside function, one can rewrite g as the product you see, the step function corresponding to c, times ft minus c, correct? So this is useful if one has to write down the Laplace transform of g, right? So how do we do that? So one way is the following, right? So this is an easy consequence. Suppose that little f is a function such that the Laplace transform for the function f exists. I'm going to denote it by capital F. This exists for all s bigger than a. So we are supposing this is true. Then for some positive constant c, the Laplace transform of the function uct ft minus c, this is precisely the function g which he had on the previous slide, is obtained by multiplying the Laplace transform of the function f with the exponential minus cs, right? So this is saying that the translation of the given function little f at a distance c in the positive t direction corresponds to multiplication of the Laplace transform with the factor exponential minus cs, right? So all of this seems like a too much going on, but the so this was sort of we did this last time. And the proof is rather simple. All you have to do is just write down the left hand side, and the right hand side will actually fall out from the definition. Okay, what is that we are going to see today is the following. So given a function little f for which the Laplace transform exists for all s bigger than a, let's denote the Laplace transform of the function little f by capital F, and let c be a constant. Then the Laplace transform of the function exponential ct times f is the same, is given as follows. Yeah? So what is happening here, right? So this is the other scenario. This is saying the following, that multiplication of the function f, so this is multiplication of the function ft by exponential ct, results in a translation of the transform f of s at a distance c in the positive s direction. Yeah, is that okay? Everybody with me? As far as at least the statement of this theorem is concerned?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah.
Ma'am, but why are we saying S is greater than A plus C?
Yeah, so I'll just point that out. Yeah, so why are we saying this, right? Let's just see the proof, and I'll point out sort of this, that why do we have this. Yeah, so let's start with the left hand side. Let's compute the Laplace transform of exponential ct ft. So this is by definition this improper integral 0 to infinity exponential minus st exponential ct ft. All right. So one can write this as exponential of minus of s minus ct times f. Now this is by definition what we need, right? So why do we have an s bigger than a plus c here? So let's note this, right? So I'll just rather write that So if there is my stylus, yeah. So if the function lit f is of exponential order a, yeah, if little f if is of exponential order a, yeah, which means that this growth restriction is there, right? So this is exponential at for all some stage onwards, right? Um, so this is true for right. So if there are constants k, a, and m such that little f satisfies this growth restriction, yeah, which is exactly saying that little f is of exponential order a, then what happens to the function what we are looking at, exponential ct times f? So we are computing the Laplace transform of exactly this function here. So this is going to be of exponential order a plus c, correct? Is that correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, and that's precisely why we have that here, right? See, if the function is of exponential order a, then the Laplace transform exists for s bigger than a, right? So for this function exponential ct times f, the Laplace transform will exist for s bigger than a plus c. Is that okay?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes. Okay. All right. All right. Okay, so these results are useful in solving differential equations, particularly those which have discontinuous forcing functions, right? Okay, we will see examples, but for now, let's see. Yeah, all right. So this is what we have. This is so just recalling that if we have a piecewise continuous function on the interval 0 alpha for every alpha positive, and the function little f is of exponential order a, then the Laplace transform exists for s bigger than a, right? This is what we sort of did very beginning of the topic of Laplace transform. Okay, so I think it's a good point to recall what are all the properties of Laplace transform that we have sort of investigated so far. Yeah. So the very first being that the Laplace transform is a linear function. Yeah. So the second one, scaling, I think we actually did not prove it maybe in the class, but one can check. It's fairly simple. The third one is how the Laplace transform of the derivative of f can be written in terms of the Laplace transform of the function f, right? So, so I should also say this, that, all of this is under the assumption that f satisfies certain hypotheses, right? So all of that is to be taken into account. The final results are being reproduced here, collated here for convenience, right? So similarly, if f satisfies the hypothesis as required, then the second derivative of f has a Laplace transform in terms of the Laplace transform of the function f, right? And point number 4 is the Laplace transform of the integral of f. So the integration, so this is the integration of the function and then taking the Laplace transform. Point number 5 is the derivative of the Laplace transform. So differentiating the Laplace transform corresponds to multiplying the original function by minus of t, right? And one can sort of bootstrap this argument again and again and write down what is the nth derivative of the Laplace transform in terms of the Laplace transform of the function. And point number 6 is regarding taking the integration of the Laplace transform. And we all agreed that the integration of the transform of a function f corresponds to division of the original function by a factor t. Okay. And point number 7 is this shifting theorem. We just recall them in the beginning of the lecture today. So UC is the step function here, the unit step function. And we agreed that translation of the function f at a distance t in the positive t direction is equivalent to multiplying the Laplace transform by a factor exponential minus cs. Yeah? And we also figured out that the Laplace transform of f product with the Laplace transform of G may not be the Laplace transform of Fg, but nevertheless, it's a nice function. It is a Laplace transform of F convolved with G, right? So I hope everybody is with me up till this point. Yes, is that okay? Okay, so I take this silence as a yes, yes, unless somebody stops me. So let's see some examples. All right. So let's work out the inverse Laplace transform of the given function g. Yeah. So g here is reciprocal of s square minus 4s plus 5. Yeah. So we have to find a function little f such that the Laplace transform of the function little f is precisely the given function g. Okay. All right. So let's see. The first thing is one may note that the denominator here is precisely s minus t whole square plus 1. Okay. So does that remind us of something? So this is, one can write it as Laplace transform of s minus t. And what is the function little f for which capital F is the Laplace transform? The function little f is sine of t. Yeah, so Laplace transform of the sine function is 1 upon s square plus 1. So g is actually a Laplace transform of the function, not sine of t, but a sort of a translate of that, right? Okay. So so the inverse Laplace transform of the function g is precisely exponential 2t sine t by one of the theorems that we discussed in the beginning of the class today. Is this okay? Everybody with me?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes?
Yes, ma'am.
All right, great. All right, so let's see one more example. Let's use this information to solve initial value problem when we have discontinuous forcing function, right? So let's look at what is given to us. So we have 2d square y by dt square plus dy by dt plus 2y equals to u5 minus u20 evaluated at t. So what are these? Please recall the right hand side are the unit step function. Yeah, and we have some initial conditions available. Okay. So, you know, what is this differential equation? For example, if we are in the interval 0 to 5, if we are in the interval, open interval 0 to 5, then this differential equation is exactly 2y double prime plus y prime plus 2y equal to 0. Correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes. And if we are in the interval t bigger than 20, yeah, so open interval 20 to infinity, then this differential equation is much the same. Then we are again looking at the differential equation 2y double prime plus y prime plus 2y equal to 0. Correct? Yes, is that okay?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes.
Yes, yes.
Yeah, ma'am.
So, all right, okay, all right. All right, so let's apply the Laplace transform. So this is under the assumption that the solution of this initial value problem satisfies whatever required to apply the Laplace transform, right? Okay. So if we apply the Laplace transform, what will I have? I will have a 2 Laplace transform of d square y by dt square, right? Which is, so I have a second derivative here, which means that I will have a s square Laplace transform of y minus s y evaluated at 0 minus the derivative of y evaluated at 0. Yeah, plus the Laplace transform of y prime, which is s times the Laplace transform of y minus y evaluated at 0 plus 2 times the Laplace transform of y equals to the Laplace transform of the right hand side. Correct? Yeah. So I hope everybody is with me up till this point. So let's simplify this. Yeah. So we collect all the terms which involve the Laplace transform of y and plug in the information we have about the Laplace transform of the step function. So I will use first the fact that the Laplace transform is linear to write down the right hand side as Laplace transform of u5 minus the Laplace transform of u20. And then I know what is the Laplace transform of the unit step function. And here, therefore, I will have the right hand side to be exponential minus 5s by s minus exponential minus 20s by s. All right. And the left hand side, if all this calculation is correct, is 2s square plus s plus 2 Laplace transform of y, right? So which means that I need to find y such that the Laplace transform of y is given as upstairs, right? Okay. Now, so I have to find the inverse Laplace transform of this function. Which function? Exponential minus 5s minus exponential minus 20s. This is in the numerator, and in the denominator, I will have s times 2s square plus s plus 2. All right. So in order to find the inverse Laplace transform of this function, I will introduce a notation. Yeah, I will write h as this 1 upon this polynomial. So this is reciprocal of this polynomial s times 2s square plus s plus 2. Okay, and I will try to write down the inverse Laplace transform of the function capital H. Yeah, which means that I will try to find a function little h whose Laplace transform is precisely the given function capital H. Now, how does it help if I have been able to identify little h? So if I am able to identify little h, then I can write down the solution, right? So everybody agrees that if I am able to identify little h, which is the inverse transform, Laplace transform of the function capital H, then by the formulas that we just discussed in the beginning of the class today, tells us that the solution to this initial value problem will be given as follows, as it's available on the slide. Is that okay?
Yes,
Yes, ma'am.
Yes. So we need to find little h, right? Okay. All right. All right. So one way to approach this problem is to use the partial fraction decomposition of the given function capital H, right? So I have a 1 by s times a quadratic here, which means that I need to find constants a, b, c such that the function capital H can be written as a by s plus, so I have a quadratic here in the denominator, so I will have bs plus c divided by 2s square plus s plus 2, right? So one does, so if this computation is correct, then it seems a should be half, b should be minus 1, and c should be minus half. All right, which means that one can write down the function capital H as follows, right? So I've just plugged in the values of a, b, c. So now, having written capital H as follows, now can you tell me what should be little h? What should be the inverse Laplace transform of the function capital H?
Ma'am,
t
1
by
by s will be
1,
Yes, 1 by s will be 1, okay. And in order
and
to take care of all of this, you make a further simplification, right? So does this seem like a
right.
good idea? Write it as s plus 1 by 4 whole square, plus,
Yes, it will be like
adjust.
cos sign.
yes, yes.
Yes.
And we can separate s and the constant term by, and we will get cos and sine respectively.
Correct, but you have to be a little careful. So let me write that down. So I've just reproduced capital H here from the previous slide in a manner which will be easier to read its Laplace transform, right? Sorry, will easier to read its inverse Laplace transform. So I have a 1 by 2 by s as it is, and I have a factor s plus 1 by 4 divided by s plus 1 by 4 whole square plus some constant, minus a factor of the form 1 by s plus 1 by 4 whole square plus some constant. Okay. So this is, we will use the following fact. Yeah. So the Laplace transform of the function, constant function 1 is 1 by s. The Laplace transform of the cosine at is s by a square plus s square. And Laplace transform of the sine at is a by s square plus a square. This is exactly what we have, meaning similar is what we have here. So that would mean that little h, which is the notation for the inverse Laplace transform for the function capital H, is precisely 1 by 2 Laplace transform of 1. So I have a 1 here, minus 1 by 2 cosine of square root of cosine of square root 15 by 4t, and I pick up an exponential minus t by 4 in order to account for the term s plus 1 by 4 here. And likewise, so all of these constant are reflected as it is. And then I have a sine root 15 by 4t multiplied by an exponential minus t by 4. Correct? Is that okay?
Yes.
Yes? Okay, all right. So having written a little h, one can write down the precise solution to the given initial value problem. Recall that y is given as u5 times ht minus 5 minus u20 ht minus 20. So what is that I want to sort of highlight here is the following fact. So please note that the function y, which is the solution of the given initial value problem, is defined everywhere. In fact, the derivative of this function also exists everywhere. But if you look at the second derivative, these are step functions here. u5 and u20 are the step functions. The second derivative does not exist at t equal to 5 and t equal to 20. Right? So, this is a little more general fact that uh, okay, so let me sort of highlight the general fact a little later. So what one could have done is you could have find the solutions to the given initial value problem on the interval 0 to 5, 5 to 20, and 20 to infinity directly by the earlier methods also. Which earlier methods? Using your earlier knowledge, which do not require the forcing, so which require the forcing function to have continuous data, right? Okay, so here is a general fact which I would like to sort of emphasize. I think it's a good point to make this clear. So suppose that I have a second order linear differential equation. Yeah, so I have, let me write it like this: y double prime plus p t y prime plus q t y equal to let's say g. Yeah, so, and p and q are continuous on an interval, let's say alpha beta, but g is only piecewise continuous there. As was the case in the example that we just discussed, right? So if y equal to yt is a solution, so let me write this, let me introduce a notation. So if y equal to, let's call it psi t. So if y equal to psi t is a solution of this differential equation, which I'm going to label as star, then psi, the function itself, the first derivative of psi, they are all continuous on the interval alpha beta. But the second derivative of psi will have jump discontinuities exactly at the same points as g. Okay. So similar remarks apply to a higher order equation also. The highest derivative of the solution appearing in the differential equation has jump discontinuities at the same points as the forcing function. But the solution itself and all its lower derivatives will continue to be continuous even at these points. Yeah, something to be sort of careful about. Yeah. So is this bit okay with everybody present here? Yeah. All right, great. So let's just go back. All right. Okay. So let's see, what do I have next? So this is actually an observation rather than a theorem. I'll correct it when I put it on Moodle. So let's make a small observation that if f is piecewise continuous on the interval 0 alpha for every alpha positive, and suppose that f is of exponential order, let's say a, so then or a or b or whatever, then there is a there are constants k and a such that f satisfies this growth condition throughout the real line. Well, actually only on the positive reals, because that's what we are interested in. Yeah, as far as the Laplace transform is concerned, right? So let me clarify here. So when we say that f is of exponential order, then this condition is required, this growth restriction is required only some stage onwards, right? So what this observation is saying is that if f is piecewise continuous, then actually this growth restriction is true throughout the interval 0 to infinity. All right. So let's just quickly fill in the proof. Now, saying that f is of exponential order means that mod of f, the absolute value of f, is at most some constant k1 times exponential at some stage onwards. So here it is stage capital M, right? Okay. Now, but the piecewise continuity of f guarantees that the absolute value of f is bounded by some constant k2 on the interval 0 and 1, right? So if we sort of put these two inequalities together, then we will be done, right? We will have whatever our observation requires, right? Is that okay? Everybody with me up till this point?
Ma'am, but isn't it the same as ex as the proof of exponential order?
See, as I said, proof meaning exponential order is just a definition. There's no proof saying.
Just it's isn't it the same thing as exponential order?
See, that's what I'm saying. Saying that little f is of exponential order by definition means that this growth condition is satisfied some stage onwards after stage capital M for all t bigger than M. Correct? And this observation is saying that this growth condition is actually true on the interval 0 to infinity, not just beyond M.
Okay, ma'am,
Is
got it,
that
got it.
okay? Yeah, is that
Yes.
okay? Yeah.
Ma'am, but
Yes.
in
Yes.
this, we are assuming that alpha, which is given in the above observation, is greater than m,
Little alpha.
is greater than m, which is not necessary, right?
See, so f is piecewise continuous on every zero alpha. So I should have been careful here. So the assumption is f is piecewise continuous for the on the interval 0 alpha for every alpha positive.
Okay, okay.
Correct? Yeah. Yeah, that's the assumption. Yeah, is that okay? Yeah.
Yeah,
Anything
ma'am.
else? Yeah. All right. So a small observation, but it has one important consequence, which is what I want to discuss next. All right. So if that is the case, which means that if f is piecewise continuous on the interval 0 alpha for every alpha positive, and little f is of exponential order, then this observation says that f satisfies this growth condition everywhere on the interval 0 to infinity, which means that the Laplace transform of the function f, which is by definition this improper integral, right? Now we know that, by assumption, what is that we know? By assumption, f is piecewise continuous on the interval 0 to alpha, and f is of exponential order, right? So we know by our earlier analysis that the Laplace transform of the function little f exists, right? So this improper integral actually converges. Now I'm going to apply this estimate here, and I'm going to apply the growth restriction on f, right, which is now valid throughout the interval 0 to infinity. So the absolute value of f is bounded above by k times exponential at for all values of t in the interval 0 to infinity, right? So which means that this estimate is true, which means that the following is true, right? The Laplace transform of f is at most k by s minus a. right? So what is this saying? This is true for all s bigger than a. Now, what is this saying? This is saying in particular that as s tends to infinity, the Laplace transform of the function s, sorry, the Laplace transform of the function f at s goes to 0. Correct? This is a statement about limiting behavior of the Laplace transform of the function f, provided the function f is piecewise continuous on the interval 0 alpha for every alpha positive, and it is of exponential order, right? Is that okay with everybody present here?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes. Now, okay. So one thing to be noted here is the following. Yeah. So, what is that we prove? We prove that if little f is piecewise continuous on the interval 0 alpha for every alpha positive and of exponential order, then the Laplace transform of the function little f has the following limiting behavior. This is a little more general statement. This is true, in fact, for any function f for which the Laplace transform of f exists, right? So even without assuming the exponential order, right? And the proof is rather difficult, which we are going to skip. But however, the statement of the theorem remains true, right? As long as the Laplace transform of the function little f exists, it follows the same limiting behavior as we have illustrated from this observation. All right. So in particular, what is this saying? If you look at the function s minus 1 by s plus 1, this does not tend to 0 as s tends to infinity, does it? Right? So what does it say? This says that this function cannot be written as Laplace transform for any other function. And the same comment is true for each of these examples, s square, s by logarithm of s, exponential s by s, right? These functions cannot be the Laplace transform of any function in light of this limiting behavior that we just discussed. Is that okay?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, with everybody present here?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, all right, good, great. Okay, so let's see what is that we have next. Okay, let's look at this example. So please note that I have a non-homogeneous differential equation here, and I have a t here sticking around, which means that this is a non-homogeneous differential equation with non-constant coefficients, right? Uh, and we have some initial condition available, right? So we are going to talk about applying the method of Laplace transform to solve this non-homogeneous differential equation with non-constant coefficients, right? So the first thing is the following, right? So I'm going to take the Laplace transform, right? So I'm going to take the Laplace transform under the assumption that the solution y satisfies whatever required by the appropriate theorem, right? So I'm going to take the Laplace transform, which means that Laplace transform of y double prime plus the Laplace transform of ty prime minus 2 times the Laplace transform of y is equal to the Laplace transform of 4, the constant function 4. All right. Now, the Laplace transform of d square y by dt square is easy, yeah, in terms of the Laplace transform of y. Now, this is s square Laplace transform of y minus s times y evaluated at 0 minus the derivative of y evaluated at 0. Okay. Now, what is this? Now, I'm going to use the theorem that we learned, actually one of the properties of the Laplace transform, that multiplying the function by t is equivalent to taking derivative of the Laplace transform here. Yeah, and you have a negative sign, right? Is that okay? So I am writing here. So I have the Laplace transform of the function y prime. You take the Laplace transform first and you differentiate with respect to the s variable with a negative sign that is precisely equal to the Laplace transform of the function t times dy by dt. Correct? And this is as it is, minus 2 Laplace transform of y, and the Laplace transform of the constant function 4 is 4 by s. Yeah. So is this bit okay with everybody present here?
Yeah, ma'am.
Yes.
Yes,
Okay.
ma'am.
All right. Okay. All right. So now let's, so, I'm just unwinding this term here. So this is the Laplace transform of y. So sorry, the Laplace transform of the derivative of y, which is s times the Laplace transform of y minus y evaluated 0. And this prime here refers to derivative with respect to s variable. Yeah, one should be careful here. Is that okay? So this is the derivative with respect to s variable. So I should rather have a d by ds ticking here for clarity. Okay. So let's introduce some notation which will be sort of easy on eyes. So I'm going to write down the Laplace transform of the function little y as capital Y. So if we introduce this notation, then what will I get? Let's see, how do I get this? So this is s square times capital Y minus s times minus 1, which is plus s. And what happens to this term? So this term disappears because the derivative of y evaluated at 0 is 0. And what happens to this term? Yeah, so you now this is a constant, this is plus 1, and you differentiate this with respect to the s variable. So you will have s times the Laplace transform of y, which is capital Y itself, plus the derivative of the Laplace transform of y with respect to the s variable, which is this term here. And correct, yeah. So this looks correct, yeah. Is that okay? Is everybody with me? No, I'll actually pause for a minute if you want to sort of ponder over it.
Ma'am, how did
Yes.
you go from step 2 to step 3?
Step 2 meaning step 2 meaning from here to here.
Yeah, the second equation to the third equation, and precisely that d by ds term.
So so this is exactly this. So I am just writing Laplace transform of the derivative of y as s times Laplace transform of y minus y evaluated at 0. And all of this one is to differentiate with respect to the s variable.
Got it, ma'am.
Right, just writing the Laplace transform of the derivative of y in terms of the Laplace transform of y. Correct? Yes.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Yeah. So is that meaning up till this point, is everybody with me? You can
Yes, ma'am.
actually take a piece of paper and work it out. But is this bit okay with everybody present here?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes.
I mean, we are just doing
Sorry, your voice is broken. Can you say that again?
first taking as constant and then in the middle term. First taking as constant and differentiating
Sorry, your voice is broken. I can't sort of make out anything.
then taking yes.
Yeah, I'm sorry, your voice was broken. I couldn't make out anything. Can you please say that again?
No problem.
Yeah. So I actually don't see your names when you're asking a question. All I see is that your name starts from Y. Is that the case? Yeah. In any case, maybe we'll try after a few minutes, when the internet is better, maybe at your end or my end. I don't know where is the trouble. So anyways, let's go ahead for the moment. So what do I gain by doing all of this, right? So what is that I have? So see, if you stare hard, this is a first order differential equation, right? In terms of capital Y now, right? Which we know how to solve, right? How do we solve this differential equation?
By introducing the
First order.
integrating factors.
By introducing the integrating factor. So what is the integrating factor here?
E power integral
Integral 3 by s minus s.
So you have a concrete integrating fractal here, and one can write that down, right? And if you do that calculation, it will turn. So this is a first order differential, first order linear. Well, not yeah, first order differential equation. So when you solve this differential equation, you will pick up a constant of integration. Correct? C, right? Is that okay? Everybody with me up till this point? So if you want, you can take 2 minutes and solve this, on a piece of paper. Take up, grab a pen or pencil and write this down and solve this.
Ma'am,
I
can
can, yeah,
you please
yes,
once again?
yeah.
That L of t y dash, how you convert it into d of d dash into L y dash s?
See, this is a property of Laplace transform that I'm using. I think I had on this slide. I'll just go back to it. Give me a minute, huh? I'll just, I don't have it here. Where is it? So I had a table, right? Where is that table? Yeah, here. So which one I'm using here? I am using property 5, first line here. Multiplying a function by t is exactly taking a derivative of the Laplace transform with the negative sign.
Okay, ma'am.
Yeah, is that okay? So this is applying to, so function y here is dy by dt. Sorry, function f in our case is the function dy by dt. Yeah, is that okay?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, all right. So let's just go back to that example. Where do I have that? Okay. Yeah, so is this okay up till this point? Any questions so far?
Ma'am, like in this problem,
Hmm.
uh, we saw that we can solve it by transforming it, and then let's say if we Laplace transformed it a problem, and then we are not able to solve it again.
Hmm.
So do we keep on transforming it
So
until we can solve it?
so you want what do you mean by saying keep on transforming, meaning keep on
Uh,
applying Laplace transform? What do you
yes,
mean?
ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Keep on applying Laplace transform until we can solve it easily. Or like this, we will get a linear equation. Like in this, we can find a integrating factor. So
See, there is no thumb rule that, if you apply Laplace transform to any, any second order equation with non-constant coefficient, then you will get a first order equation which is sort of tractable. There's no thumb rule. Is that okay? Right? So some cases it works. That's all.
in which cases that we don't know.
Right. So whatever can be solved by Laplace transform, anyways, you're making a big assumption here that the solution satisfies whatever the theorem demands. Correct. Right. So
Yeah.
there is an assumption here, but it turns out, which I think much better than I am. But I know that all of this comes very useful in practical applications, which you people do in electrical engineering. The method of Laplace transform actually is used and applied to solve differential equations, which you come across. Okay. But there is no set rule that this is a pool of equations that can be solved using this method. There is nothing well defined to the best of my knowledge. Yeah.
Right.
Okay. All right. So coming back to this example, everybody agrees that you pick up a constant of integration here, c, right, which is undetermined. Correct? No, even with these initial condition, one cannot determine this constant of integration. Is that okay?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes. Okay. But let's see. So I've just reproduced the last line on the previous slide, but I claim that C must be 0. Why is that the case?
Yes,
This
since
constant
S
C
tends
must be 0. Go ahead.
because when S tends to infinity,
Because
it
this
becomes
function must
zero.
go to 0 at infinity.
Because this
Exponential.
function, because we have to use because we apply the limiting behavior of the Laplace transform. Yeah, excellent. The limiting behavior of the Laplace transform forces us to conclude that the constant C must be 0. So fortunately, in this case, it turns out that the Laplace transform of the solution is just 2 by s cube by minus 1 by s. And one can take the inverse Laplace transform and write down the solution y of the initial value problem as t square minus 1. So it just worked out fortunately in this example. Yeah, is that okay? Yeah, is that
Yes,
okay with everybody
ma'am.
present here? All right, great. All right. So let's see. So if this bit is okay, let's use, let's solve, let's solve as many examples as possible. Let's look at another initial value problem. Yeah, d square y by dt square minus 3 dy by dt plus 2y equals 4t. Yeah, and initial conditions are available. Okay. Again, we will apply the method of Laplace transform. Assume that the solution satisfies all the hypotheses of the corollary, which relates the derivatives of Laplace transform of the derivatives to the Laplace transform of the function itself. Okay. All right. So if you do that, you will have a Laplace transform of d square y by dt square minus 3 times the Laplace transform of dy by dt plus 2 times Laplace transform of y. This must equal 4 times Laplace transform of the function t, right? So the first term here is same as s square Laplace transform of y minus s y evaluated at 0 minus the derivative y evaluated at 0. Now the Laplace transform of the derivative of y is same as s times the Laplace transform of y and so minus the function y evaluated 0, and this constant minus 3 is multiplied throughout, plus 2 times Laplace transform of y is equal to 4 times the Laplace transform of the function t, which is 1 by s square, right? Right, you remember Laplace transform of the function t to power p is gamma p plus 1 by s to the power p plus 1, correct? Which holds when p is at least as big as minus 1. All right. Okay. All right. And then one can read the Laplace transform of y here as this rational function s cube minus 4s square plus 4 by s square s minus 1 s minus 2. Okay. So now the question is to find out the inverse Laplace transform of this rational function so that one can write down the function little y. Okay, so how do we compute the inverse Laplace transform in this case?
Partial
Partial
fraction.
fractions.
That is to use the partial fraction decomposition. All right. So what is going to be the partial fraction decomposition? So I have s square here, so which means that I should have a factor a1 by s and also a factor a2 by s square, right? And this factor s minus 1 will contribute to b by s minus 1, and this factor 1 upon s minus 2 will contribute to c by s minus 2, right? And how do we solve this? Okay, so we multiply this above equation throughout by s square, s minus 1, s minus 2. So what do we get? So we will have a numerator as it is s cube minus 4s square plus 4 times a1 s minus 1 s minus 2 plus a2 s minus 1 s minus 2 plus b s square s minus 2 plus c s square s minus 1. Yeah, looks correct. Okay. All right. So one can do something, right? How do I find out these constants? So I plug in, right? So if I plug in s equal to 1, then I will get what is b. And similarly, you put s equal to 2 to get c, correct? All other terms vanish. And likewise, put s equal to 0 to get a2, right? Still need to determine a1. Yeah, so in order to determine a1, what do you do? One way is you differentiate the above equation with respect to x. Yeah, so what you get is, so you have a quadratic here, and then some terms involving a1, a2, and a2, and all other terms will involve s, which means that when I plug in s equal to 0, they will vanish, which will enable us to compute what is a1. Correct? Is that okay? Just an example on partial fraction decomposition. All right. So if this is okay, then one can identify what is a1, a2, b, and c. And having done that, one can write down easily 1 by s is the Laplace transform of the constant function 1. 1 upon s square is the Laplace transform of the function t. 1 upon s minus 1 is the Laplace transform of the function exponential t. And 1 upon s minus 2 is the Laplace transform of the function exponential 2t. Right? Use the linearity here. So write down, so we get the solution as 3 plus 2t minus exponential t minus exponential 2t. Right? So is this bit okay with everybody so far?
Yes.
All right, great. So let's use some more, let's solve some more examples. Now here I have an initial value problem where the initial condition, so this is the homogeneous part has constant coefficient. You have a non-homogeneous function. The forcing function is a nice polynomial, but the initial conditions are not available at 0, but at some other point. Can we still use the method of Laplace transform to solve this question? Okay, one can, and here is what can be done. Okay, so one is that you reduce the given initial value problem to one which has initial conditions available at the origin. And one can do that by making a change of coordinates. So you introduce a new variable t tilde, which is given as t minus pi by 4. So that now the problem in the new coordinates t tilde will look as follows, right? So I'm going to write y tilde t tilde as yt. So y is the solution of the given initial problem. So y tilde t tilde is same as yt. So in the new coordinates, the problem will look like the following. Yeah, so I have the second derivative of y tilde now with respect to t tilde. So this is d square y tilde by d tilde square plus y tilde plus 2. So this is 2t. Correct. Wait a minute. So this is fine. I should have a t tilde here, right? I should have a t tilde here. Sorry, this should be t tilde. And so the initial conditions are now at 0, right? So is this okay?
Yes.
Everybody?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes. Okay. All right. So this is a typo here. This should be t tilde, yeah, and not t. I will fix this. Okay. Now assume that the solution of this new problem satisfies all the conditions of the corollary that we require, yeah, in order to write down the Laplace transform of uh, d square y tilde d tilde square in terms of the Laplace transform of y tilde. Okay, and things like that. Okay, so if that is possible, then the first term here is precisely s square, the Laplace transform of y tilde, minus s y tilde evaluated 0 minus the derivative of y tilde at 0 plus the Laplace transform of y tilde, and you will have 2. So this is t tilde here. So the Laplace transform of t tilde is gamma 2 by s square plus this constant here. So 1 by, so pi by 2, and the Laplace transform of the constant function 1 is 1 by s. Correct? Okay. Which means that the Laplace transform of y tilde satisfies this equation. Yeah, is that okay? So I just plugged in the values using the initial conditions available, right? So I'm using the fact here that this is a linear change of coordinates, right? Okay, all right. So this means that, so let's just write down the last thing again. So the Laplace transform of y tilde is given as follows. So one has to write down the inverse Laplace transform of this function. Okay. Now what do we do? How do we take the inverse Laplace transform? So I have a 2 by s square plus 1. This was an example which was discussed previous time. We worked out actually the inverse Laplace transform of the function 1 upon s square plus a square. Or you can do this small calculation afresh. This turns out to be the Laplace transform of the function t tilde minus sine tilde. Now this is 1 upon s by s square plus a square. This was also worked out last time. This is Laplace transform of 1 minus cosine t tilde. Now this is easy. S by s square plus 1. This is the Laplace transform of cosine t tilde. And this is also easy. 1 upon s square plus 1. This is the Laplace transform of sine t tilde. Right? So if you sort of clear a few things here, what do you get? Y tilde is 2 tilde plus pi by 2 minus square root of 2 sine t tilde. All right. Which means that if I go back to, if I want to write down the solution in terms of the variable t, so one has to, take care of this term sine t tilde and apply the formula sine of a minus b here. So which turns out to be following, if this calculation is correct, so one can write down y as 2t minus sine t plus cosine t is the solution of the initial value problem given to us. Is that okay?
Yes.
Yes? Yeah, so hope that is a yes with everybody present here. So let's continue our theme of working out a few more examples. All right. So let's look at this problem. This is a problem from actually the tutorial sheet 5. So one is required to solve a system of equations here, right? So you have three unknowns, y1, y2, y3, and three differential equations and initial conditions available, right? So solving a system of differential equations using the method of Laplace transforms. Okay, all right. So again, we will apply Laplace transform, assuming that the solution y1, y2, y3 satisfies the conditions which required. Okay. So what do I get? So I will have, so this is the Laplace transform of the derivative of y1, which means that I will get an s times Laplace transform of y1 minus y1 evaluated 0. So this, which does not contribute because all of these are 0. Similarly, you will have a s times Laplace transform of y2 minus y2 evaluated at 0 minus the Laplace transform of the derivative y3, which is s times Laplace transform y3 minus y3 evaluated 0. Yeah, so this is the first equation. Similarly, the second equation becomes s times the Laplace transform of y1 plus s times the Laplace transform of y2 plus equals 4 times the Laplace transform of t plus 2 times the Laplace transform of the constant function 1. Right? So this is 4 by s square plus 2 by s. And the third equation becomes s times Laplace transform y2 plus Laplace transform y3 is Laplace transform of t square, which is 2 by s cube plus Laplace transform of 2 times the constant function 1. So Laplace transform of the constant function 1, which is 2 by s. All right. Now we need to solve, right? So we will solve for, make some manipulation and solve for Laplace transform of y1 and Laplace transform of y2 and Laplace transform of y3. And then what do? You need to find the inverse Laplace transform, right? So which means that y1 should be t square, y2 should be t square plus 2t. Yeah, that's correct. And y3 should be t square minus 2t. Correct? Is that okay?
Yes, ma'am.
All right. Yeah. All right. So we're just doing sort of examples back to back. But I think solving problems helps, sort of gives you sort of lot more confidence. So here's another problem from tutorial sheet 5. Again, there's a system of equations here. Okay, so let's apply the method of Laplace transform under the assumption that the conditions of the corollary, the hypothesis, is satisfied. Okay. So if I apply the Laplace transform of to the first equation, I will get s times the Laplace transform of x minus x evaluated 0. This should be the same as the Laplace transform of x plus the Laplace transform of y. And the second equation should be s times the Laplace transform of y minus y evaluated at 0 plus equals 4 times the Laplace transform of x plus the Laplace transform of y, right? So again, you solve for Laplace transform of x and so Laplace transform of y. So which will lead you to the following, right? So in this case, we are not given what are the values of x and y at 0, but that's okay. Those are some constants. So one needs to find the inverse Laplace transform, right? So is this okay? Can I leave this for you to fill in? One can use the partial fraction decomposition, for example. Yes?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes? Okay, great. All right. So moving on to another problem from tutorial sheet 5. So suppose that f is a piecewise continuous function. So f is piecewise continuous on the interval 0 to alpha for every alpha positive. And further, we are given that f is periodic with period t, right? So f of t plus p is same as ft, and this is true for all t. The problem is to evaluate the Laplace transform of the function f. Okay. So let's just do it by definition. So by definition, the Laplace transform of the function little f is this improper integral, right? Now, what is that we know? We know that the function f is periodic with period p. So I'm going to split this integral from 0 to infinity as the integral from 0 to p to tp, 2p to 3p, and so on, right? And now I'm going to use the fact that f is periodic with period p, right? So the first integral, I'm going to write it as it is. And the second integral, I'm going to make a change of coordinates. What is the change of coordinates? I'm going to introduce a new variable here. So I'm going to replace t by t minus p, right? And use the periodicity of f so that I get the following integrand and the limits of the integration are changed, right? Is that okay? Is everybody with me?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, and you do this sort of change of variables at each stage, right? So for this case, you are going to sort of in this integral, when you are integrating from 2p to 3p, you're going to make, replace t by t minus 2p, right? That's the right integral to look at, right? So and use the fact that f is periodic with period p, right? Okay. All right, which means that what is this? So this is exponential minus stft. Now, again, you will have a term here, exponential sp, which is independent of t. Much like here. Over here in the third integral, you will have a term like exponential 2 times sp, independent of t. So you can pull that out. So you have a 1 plus exponential sp plus exponential 2sp plus exponential 3sp and through on, right? So that's an infinite series, right? So this is 1 plus x square and so on, right? So that is what I have written here. Is that okay?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, is that okay with everybody present here? Yeah, all right. So just a small observation, one can use the periodicity of f to actually simplify the Laplace transform, the computation of the Laplace transform. Okay, all right.
Ma'am,
Yes, please.
it will be, could you explain the step 1 plus c power sp plus c power 2?
Could I explain the step? Can you please be louder, a little louder, please?
Yeah. The third to fourth step, could you
Third to
explain
fourth
again?
step. Okay. So all I'm trying to say is, so this is, so let me write that down. So this is, what is the term? So this is integral 0 to p exponential minus st ft dt plus integral 0 to p exponential minus st exponential sp ft dt plus integral 0 to p exponential minus stft exponential 2sp dt. Is that correct? That's what we
Yes,
have.
ma'am.
Yes, that's what I have, right? This is the third equation.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, so this is, I should have a left hand side here. So this is the Laplace transform of the function little a, right? Right. So all I'm trying to say is I have the following. So I have a 1 plus exponential sp plus exponential 2sp plus exponential 3sp and so on. And I have I'm sorry, and I have this integral 0 to p exponential minus stft, right? Now this, this is a term of the following form: 1 plus x square plus x cube and so on. When does this converge?
X is less than
What is less than 1?
x.
Okay,
Mod x less than.
and what is the sum?
A by 1 by 1 minus x.
1 upon 1 minus x. That's precisely what is written here on the slide. Yeah, is that okay?
Ma'am,
What
x is e power sp then.
Sorry.
X is e power sp then,
Um,
not minus sp.
so there's a negative sign here missing, is it? There's some.
I think it should be t plus p and t plus
yes.
2p inside the integral.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah.
Because
So
then
you're
we-
saying that this should be t plus p here, is it?
Yes.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes.
Let me think. Let me think a little bit. So if you have a t plus p here, yes. So this term is as is, and yeah, you're right. You're right. Yeah. So this is a t plus p. This is a t plus 2p. Right. You're right. Yeah. So then you will have a negative sign everywhere. Yeah. Thank you very much for pointing out this mistake. Is that okay? So this
Yes.
is, this is a minus sp, and this is a, yeah. So in the in tech, I will sort of make these changes before I post this on Moodle. Yeah. Thank you very much. Yeah. So good that you asked, and this is sorted. Yeah. Yeah. I'm sorry for this mistake. Right. So is this okay now? Yeah. With this error. So now it looks okay, right? Okay. So let's move on to the next example. So this is again from the tutorial sheet 5. So let's stare at what is this saying, right? So I have a differential equation with non-constant coefficients here, right? And what is it we are given? We are given the solution y, the value of the solution y at origin, and we are given the Laplace transform of the solution y at some point at one point, right? And we are required to compute the Laplace transform of the solution of this equation, right? So this is sort of interesting because we are looking at a this is a homogeneous differential equation, but with non-constant coefficients, right? So one has to be careful here. Yeah. So is this okay? At least the question. So let's see. Yeah. So we will say that let's apply the method of Laplace transform, assuming that the solution satisfies whatever is needed. So which means that the Laplace transform of t d square y by dt square plus dy by dt plus ty equals 0. Okay. All right. Now what is this? So again, I am going to use the following fact that differentiating the Laplace transform corresponds to multiplying the original function by minus t, right? So that is why when I consider the Laplace transform of t times the second derivative of y, I will have a negative sign, and I will take the Laplace transform of the second derivative y, and this needs to be differentiated with respect to the s variable. Now this term is easy. The Laplace transform of the first derivative of y is s times the Laplace transform of y minus y0. Now again, you have a multiple, you have a factor of t here. So which means that this should be minus of, so you have a negative sign, Laplace transform of y, and you differentiate it with respect to the s variable. Correct? Is that okay? So I hope everybody is with me.
Yeah, ma'am.
Yeah. All right. And now, you use the information that we are given what is y at 0. So, so that can be plugged in here. And what else can be done? Yeah. So we are differentiating this here, right? So before that, I am writing the Laplace transform of the second derivative of y in terms of the Laplace transform of y. Yeah. So this is s square Laplace transform of y minus s y evaluated 0 minus the derivative of y evaluated 0, and all of this must be differentiated with respect to the s variable. Okay, all right. And now it is easier to sort of introduce this notation here. So I'm going to denote the Laplace transform y as capital Y. So what is this? This is, so what is that happening? Yeah, so this term is the derivative of y. So you have a 1 here, and this term also will contribute to the derivative of capital Y. So you will have a 2s minus of 2s Laplace transform of y, and a minus of s square derivative of Laplace transform y. Yeah, and what happens to this term y at 0? So this cancels out with this, yeah, negative negative, and you differentiate, yeah, so this terms cancel out, so this term k does not appear, and and this term also disappears because you are differentiating with respect to the variable s. Yeah, so this is okay, right? This is correct. Yes, is that okay?
Yeah, ma'am.
Yeah, all right. Okay, all right. So which means that one can write down the Laplace transform of the function, the solution is some constant divided by square root of s square plus 1. Yeah, so you get a first order differential equation which is satisfied by the function capital Y here, right? So when you solve for it, how do you solve for this first order differential equation here, by the way? What would be a good
Separation of
one
variable
can
Separation of variable.
Excellent. Yeah, so one can separate variables. So you will pick up a constant of integration here, c, right? And you are given this data, one can use this information. So this is exactly capital Y at 1, right? So use this information to evaluate c. So which means that capital Y is precisely 1 upon square root of s square plus 1, right? Is that okay?
Yes, ma'am.
All right.
Yes.
I had a doubt.
Yes, please.
Ma'am, what did we substitute for y prime of 0?
Over here,
Yes.
see, that is not required because we are differentiating all of this with respect to s variable. So this term will not contribute. This one will vanish.
Yeah, that's
Yeah?
all.
So that information is not required. Yeah, is
Yes,
that okay?
ma'am. Yeah, got it.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Okay. Let's see one more example, I think, and then perhaps, yeah. Okay. So what is the Laplace transform of exponential minus t sine square t? So if somebody says compute the Laplace transform of this, then no. See, we know the Laplace, what happens if you multiply by exponential, right? We know what happens, right? Multiplication of a function by exponential, we know what is coming, right? This is when we talked about the step function. So we need to actually take care of the function sine square, right? So one way is that, you rewrite sine square as something else, right? You rewrite this as this, right? 1 minus cosine 2t by t. And now use the linearity of the Laplace transform. And now we know, right, how to fix this, right? So this is Laplace transform of exponential minus t by 2, which is Laplace transform of 1 upon s plus 1, right? And Laplace transform of exponential minus t cosine 2t is, you write down the Laplace transform. So you write down the function which corresponds to the Laplace transform of cosine function, which is s by s square plus a square, and then shifted by unit 1 because you have a factor exponential minus t here. Correct? Is that okay?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Another example. What is the Laplace transform of t square exponential minus 80? How would one do that?
Like we know Laplace transform of t times a function, so we just have to like differentiate twice.
Correct. Yeah. So one way is you just differentiate twice, right? So that's one way. Yeah. So we are done. Okay, great.
We can shift it like we know t square, Laplace of t square, and then we can shift it by.
One can do that also. One can do that also, right? All right. And one more example on a similar line. So you have a Laplace transform of t to power a exponential minus bt. How do you do that?
A factorial by s plus b.
How
power
do you
a
get
plus
that? How do you get that? See, a may not be a factorial. You know, we don't know
oh,
if it's an integer or not. So, you know, we'll have a gamma function here, right?
gamma of a plus 1 by s plus b whole power a plus 1.
Right. But how do you get that?
It's
Ma'am, we
it's
know
like
the
e
Laplace
power
transform
minus
of t
bt
to the
of
power
f of
a,
t.
Correct.
and we can just shift it by b then.
Correct. Right. So we are just applying the shifting theorem, right? So I think these are a couple of examples that I wanted to discuss today, just to sort of give you a feel of sort of how diverse the method of Laplace transform is, and yeah. So, and I think the very last thing for today is a small detour on partial fraction decomposition, but this I think perhaps you know very well. So I'll just sort of maybe skip this and maybe rather go to just read this, right? So if so happens that, you know, you have a factor x minus alpha to the power n, where alpha is some real number, this divides g. Now what is g here? So I should read this. So suppose that P is an irreducible polynomial with real coefficients. Yeah, what do I mean by irreducible? Irreducible here means that P cannot be further factored into product of two non-constant polynomials whose coefficients are on the real line. Yeah. Then the degree of the polynomial P is at most 2. Right. Now, this is a well-known result that suppose that you're looking at the rational function f by g. Yeah? So f and g are polynomials with rational coefficients. The degree of the numerator is strictly less than the degree of the denominator. Then one can write down the rational function f by g uniquely as a sum of the form f by p to power k, where you know, k is bigger than 1, at least 1, and the degree of f is no, is strictly less than k times the degree of p. You know, this looks like, you know, so much going on, but it's very simple partial fraction decomposition. Maybe, you know, this is which you have been sort of doing forever. So for example, if you have a factor x minus
Excuse me, ma'am.
yes please.
And how are you saying that degree of P is at most 2?
See, because I'm saying that P cannot be factored into product of two non-constant polynomials with coefficients in R. If the degree is 3, then you can always break it down. You can further factor it down.
Yeah, like, but if the degree is 4, then we might not be able to do that.
Let's see. If the degree is 4, then you cannot do it.
Like x to the power 4 plus 1 is a 4-degree polynomial. But you can't break it into non-constant polynomials.
So you cannot factor it into real meaning you're saying that the problem here is that I'm demanding real coefficients, is it?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes.
Let's see. Yeah, you're right here. Yeah, you're right. You're right. Yeah, I'll. So I actually don't see you know, your names when you.
Ma'am, it can be
Go ahead. Go ahead.
1 by x power 4 plus 1 can be broken with real coefficients.
As what?
Like add plus 2x square minus 2x square, it will be x square plus 1 whole square minus root 2 of x whole square.
Let me write that down, whatever you are saying. So what are you saying? You are saying that let's look at x to power 4 plus 1, correct? And what are you saying? Let's subtract and is that what you're saying?
Yes.
Yes. And then what do you want to do? You're writing, you want to write x square minus
Square plus 1 whole square.
X square plus 1 whole square. All right. Minus 2x square.
Yeah.
Yes. And then
write 2x square as under root 2 of x whole square.
yes.
And a square minus b square form.
and then x square plus 1 plus root 2x. Is that correct?
Yes, ma'am. In this case, it is correct, but will we be able to do such thing in
Yeah,
every
ma'am.
case?
There will be case with degree 4 that we can't factorize, right?
Let me think a little bit. What can possibly go wrong?
Like if there are complex roots, they'll come in pairs anyway because there are real coefficients. So we could multiply like two of
Correct.
them
And
and
then you will
Yeah.
have two of them, right? So
yeah, so
that's going to be
then
fine.
I think
Yeah,
Because
yeah,
the
right.
polynomial to start off with also has real coefficients.
Right.
That's the only problematic case, right? At least
Yeah.
when you're looking at just degree 4 polynomials. Correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes. And then, yeah, that's fine, right? Yeah, is that okay? The argument seems correct, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes.
Yeah, great, great, great that we sorted it out. All right. All right. So anyways, what is that I wanted to sort of say here, that the factor x minus alpha to the power n implies that the partial fraction decomposition corresponding to this factor will have n, will involve sum of n terms, and you need to compute these constants a1, a2, an, where, we have a1 by x minus alpha, a2 by x minus alpha square, and so on, an by x minus alpha to the power n. And on the other hand, if you have a quadratic term x qx dividing g, and let's assume even there's a multiplicity here, so you have a qx to the power r dividing the denominator g, then the partial fraction decomposition corresponding to this would be, so you will have a b1 plus c1 x by q, and b2 plus c2 x by q square, and br plus cr x by qx to the power r. Correct? So this is perhaps, all of you know very well. So and one can sort of simplify this. One can actually read what are these constants a1, a2, an. So if g can be factored as x minus r1, x minus r2, x minus rn, where all of these are distinct real numbers, then one should be able to write f by g as the right hand side that is given to us, and one can actually directly compute what are these constants a1, a2, an, right? One can write down a1 by just plugging in f at these values, right? Is that correct? And how do you get this? Yes, this is sort of something to remember on top of your head, or you may not, whichever way suits you, right? So I'm sure all of you know this very well. So I think I'll just stop right here for today, because yeah, I think this is a good time to stop. So let me just stop the recording, and any questions then.